The restaurant went quiet when the woman's voice cut through the air. It wasn't loud at first, but it carried sharpness, the kind that slices through conversations and clinking cutlery. She stood beside her table, eyes narrowed, finger pointed without shame. "Your skin is too dark for my daughter," she said, each word deliberate, cruel, and unapologetic. For a moment, no one moved. Forks hovered mid-air. A waiter froze with a tray in his hands. The soft jazz music playing in the background suddenly felt out of place, like a lie pretending everything was normal. The daughter, a young woman in her early 20s, stood rigid, her hand still held by the man beside her. Her eyes shimmered with tears she refused to let fall. She looked embarrassed, not by the man she loved, but by the woman who had raised her. Her lips parted as if she wanted to speak, to protest, to defend him, but years of fear and conditioning held her silent. Her grip tightened instead, fingers curling around his hand. The young man stood tall, shoulders squared, his posture calm but strained. He had learned this stillness over years of experience, learned how to stand without flinching when words tried to reduce him. Inside, something twisted painfully, but his face revealed nothing but quiet dignity. He did not shout. He did not insult back. Around them, whispers began to ripple. Some diners looked away, suddenly fascinated by their plates. Others stared openly, shock and discomfort written across their faces. A few shook their heads subtly, disapproving but unwilling to involve themselves. Silence, thick and heavy, wrapped around the moment like a fog. The woman, emboldened by the lack of immediate confrontation, continued. "I didn't raise my daughter to ruin her future," she scoffed. "People will judge her. Think of what this looks like." Her voice trembled with something that sounded like moral superiority, as if prejudice were a virtue. The daughter finally spoke, her voice breaking. "Mom, please stop!" But the woman waved her off dismissively. "You don't understand yet. I'm protecting you." At a nearby table, an older man set his glass down slowly. He had been dining alone, dressed in an understated but impeccable suit. Silver threaded through his hair, and his eyes were sharp, observant. He had noticed the couple when they first entered, noticed how the young man pulled out the chair gently, how the daughter smiled more freely around him. Now, the older man rose from his seat, not abruptly, not dramatically, but with deliberate calm. His chair made a soft sound against the floor, one that somehow felt louder than it should have. A few heads turned in his direction, curious. He straightened his jacket and took a step forward. The racist mother continued talking, her words spilling unchecked. "You should be ashamed," she said to the young man. "You're putting ideas in her head. You don't belong in her world." The young man inhaled slowly. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. He had said these arguments before in other places, to other people. He knew how they usually ended. Still, the pain never dulled completely. The older man moved closer, stopping just far enough to observe without interrupting. His gaze shifted from the woman's twisted expression to the daughter's trembling hands, then to the young man's steady posture. He absorbed every detail, every unspoken truth in the space between them. The restaurant manager hovered nervously near the bar, unsure whether to intervene or avoid escalation. Staff exchanged uneasy glances. No one wanted to be the first to act, to take responsibility for what was clearly wrong but socially uncomfortable. The woman finally noticed the older man approaching. "What are you staring at?" she snapped. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at the young couple again, nodding slightly, as if acknowledging their restraint. Then his eyes returned to the woman. His expression was calm, unreadable, but there was authority in the way he stood, in the stillness of his presence. "You've said enough," he said quietly. She scoffed. "This doesn't concern you?" He tilted his head slightly. "It concerns everyone when hate is spoken publicly." A hush fell over the room. Even the kitchen seemed to go silent. The woman opened her mouth to respond, but something in his tone made her hesitate. Still, her pride pushed her forward. "People like you always overreact," she said. "I'm just being honest. Honesty without humanity is cruelty," the older man replied. The daughter's eyes widened. For the first time since the confrontation began, she looked at someone with hope instead of fear. The young man felt a subtle shift in the air, as if the weight pressing on his chest had lightened slightly. The woman crossed her arms defensively. "And who are you supposed to be?" The older man did not answer right away. Instead, he gestured gently toward the couple. "Before I tell you who I am," he said, "I want you to look at them. Truly look. Not at your assumptions, not at your fears, at the people standing in front of you." She rolled her eyes. "I know exactly what I see." "No," he said firmly. "You see what you've been taught to see." Murmurs spread across the dining room now. Some diners nodded in agreement. Others watched intently, drawn into the unfolding confrontation. The woman sensed the shift and grew louder, trying to reclaim control. "I will not apologize for wanting better for my child," she declared. The daughter finally let go of the young man's hand and stepped forward, tears spilling freely now. "You don't get to decide what's better for me," she said shakily. "Not like this." The woman looked stunned, as if slapped. "After everything I've done for you?" The older man raised his hand slightly, a subtle gesture that somehow commanded silence. "This is where you stop," he said, "because what you're doing now isn't love. It's ownership." The restaurant. Never been brave enough to say aloud. Someone had drawn a line and refused to let her mother step over it again. Then the older man turned back to the woman. His posture straightened, the softness gone. "You're banned from every restaurant I own," he said calmly. "Effective immediately." The words landed with finality, not anger. "And your behavior tonight will be documented and reported to your employer." Her confidence collapsed. "You can't do that," she whispered, panic seeping into her voice. "You don't know who I am." He nodded slightly. "I know exactly who you showed yourself to be." He gestured around the room. "And so does everyone else." The restaurant manager stepped forward now, emboldened. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." His voice trembled, but he stood firm. Two staff members appeared nearby, quiet but unmistakably present. The woman's eyes darted to her daughter. "You're just going to let this happen?" she demanded. "After everything I've done for you?" The daughter swallowed hard, then lifted her chin. "You didn't do this for me," she said softly. "You did it to control me." Her voice shook, but it didn't break. "I won't be part of it anymore." That, more than the ban or the public disapproval, seemed to truly unseat the woman. She stared at her daughter as if seeing her for the first time, then turned away sharply, gathering her bag with trembling hands. She left without another word, heels clicking too loudly against the floor. As the doors closed behind her, the room felt lighter, as if a storm had passed through and moved on. Conversations resumed cautiously, but the tone had changed. People smiled at the couple, some nodding in quiet support. A few even clapped softly before thinking better of it. The older man turned back to the couple again. "Please," he said, gesturing toward their table. "Stay. Dinner is on the house." He paused, then added, "Every course, every dessert." The daughter managed a small laugh through her tears. "Thank you," she said. "That means more than you know." He smiled. "It's the least I can do." Then his gaze shifted to the young man, studying him with renewed interest. "May I sit for a moment?" The young man nodded, surprised. "Of course." They sat. The older man rested his hands on the table, fingers interlaced. "I've been watching how you handled yourself tonight," he said. "You didn't escalate. You didn't shrink. You stood with dignity even when it cost you comfort." The young man shrugged slightly. "I've learned that reacting the way they expect only feeds it." The older man smiled faintly. That's wisdom many people never learn. He leaned back slightly. Tell me, what do you do? I work in logistics, the young man replied. Operations, planning, nothing glamorous. Glamour is overrated, the older man said. Competence isn't. He tilted his head. Would you be open to a conversation? A job interview, perhaps? The young man blinked. An interview? Yes, the older man said simply. Tomorrow if you're available, or next week. No pressure. The daughter's eyes widened. Are you serious? I don't make offers lightly, he replied, but I do make them honestly. The young man felt his heart pound, disbelief mixing with cautious hope. I'd be honored, he said. Good, the older man said, standing. Then we'll talk soon. He nodded to them both. Enjoy your evening. As he walked away, the restaurant buzzed quietly, not with gossip, but with reflection. Strangers exchanged looks that said more than words could. Some moments, people sensed, were meant to be carried home and remembered. The daughter reached for the young man's hand again, squeezing it tightly. I'm sorry you had to hear that, she said. From her, from anyone. He shook his head gently. I'm just glad you didn't stand alone.